without further ado, we are going to create a brand new Teal account. And let's say that we are just starting out our job search. I have to log out of my personal one. We're going to pretend like we are just kicking off our search. And all you have to do, this is always free to create an account. And when you log in, you will be directed to your dashboard. So one of the most important things you can do in your job search is to stay organized. There are a million moving parts with your search. There is no way to keep track of it all in your head. If you figured out a way, please let us know. We want to hear from you. But one of the best things you can do is really create a plan for yourself. So you can go ahead and set your goals in here in your dashboard so that they're front and center at all times. So let's say we're going for a marketing manager role, and ideally want to start by January 1st, well, 2nd, 2024, new year, new career. And let's say salary minimum is 80,000. I'm not going to do a maximum because why cap myself? So as you go about any action you take within Teal, you'll start to see the progress reflected on this dashboard. So you can see how many jobs are in each stage of your funnel at any time. So let's say we want to try to submit 7 applications a week. This will update and you'll see a progress bar go. And as you apply to more and more jobs, you will see this update. Leah, do you have any recommendations for folks who are not sure about sort of how to keep track of the jobs that they're applying to?
Yeah, great question. So if you're not really sure how to start, or if you've kind of got multiple different ways of tracking your job search and maybe they're not working for you, one of the reasons that I like using the job tracker is a lot of times, especially in today's market, companies will open a role and then get flooded with applicants, and then they'll close the role really quickly, and that role is no longer available online. So let's say in a couple of weeks, you get reached out for an interview and want to reference that role for just preparing, just to make sure you know a little bit more about the company so you can present as someone really well prepared, and that job description is gone. So you're basically flying blind in that situation. So using things like the job tracker is really helpful because you can use the free Chrome extension, add that in there, and then you will have that job description forever. If you're not currently job searching right now, but you may be, it's also a great tool to do some market analysis and kind of research the different roles that are out there right now, what they're looking for, and how you can get prepared and get started to apply and figure out what it is they're looking for and what you have on your resume, and kind of merge the two. It's also just a great tool to keep organized and give yourself a little bit of idea of how many roles you're applying for, how many are reaching out for an interview, how many are potentially giving an offer, and you can kind of do your own analysis there.
Totally. That's a great call. I would love to hear in the chat too, if folks are comfortable sharing sort of how you're currently tracking and managing your job search, whether you're using a combination of a Google Sheet or Trello or Excel. We know a lot of folks are using Excel. We like to say what gets measured gets managed. So really the most important thing is that like you are doing what works for you, but keeping track can really help you understand your success rate if you treat your own job search like a project that you're managing, and this is the tool that you're going to use to help you stay on track to reach your goals in time. Also, I'm a huge Notion user, so Teal was a shift for me as well, but it's been, oh, thanks, Kevin. It's been really cool to see it evolve over time. And to Leah's point in the comments too, we are always taking member feedback. We want to make sure that this is the best possible product for you as a job seeker. So questions, concerns, feedback, always welcome. Feel free to shoot us a note at membersupport@tealhq.com. So let's talk about tracking your jobs first, because a lot of times I think when people are job searching, there's a tendency to want to hop right into this state of like, I need to update my resume right now, or I see a job on LinkedIn that I'm super interested in. It's time for me to update my resume. And then the panic that takes me, I don't know, maybe it's just me, the panic that overcomes me at the thought of like, oh, I have to update my resume. It's almost such a blocker that I'm like, no, it's fine, like I'll just stay put. Or I default to like, well, let me just find the template that looks nice because that'll be easiest if I have a pretty template first, and then I can figure out the content of my resume later. I'm going to put like a big timeout on there and just say, before you even start to work on your resume, go ahead and start to research the kinds of jobs you are interested in. Because if you're creating a resume with no set job in mind, it's sort of like, it's very broad. What you really want to do first is have a sense of what the exact position is that you're interested in, and then you can adjust your resume and tailor it from there to best present yourself as a good candidate for that particular role. So I'm going to go over to LinkedIn. I will caveat this by saying not all jobs are listed on LinkedIn. And so oftentimes we recommend diversifying your approach and using a bunch of different job boards. The Teal Chrome extension works with over 40 job boards. I think Leah's shared that link in the chat of the full list of the boards that it works on. But a lot of times LinkedIn charges a lot to list a job. And so there are lots of smaller companies that are amazing that may not have the budget to list roles on LinkedIn, or there may be niche job boards that you can check out. So we're using LinkedIn today as a demo, but with the knowledge that it's not the only place to be looking. Cool. So Leah, do you maybe want to touch on what putting quotation marks around this role, why we do that when we search?
So anything on the internet is searchable, and using like SEO, search engine optimized, or a search query can help find the right answer. So if you're Googling how to do this, or you want to find an answer to a solution, you hit it in Google, you're going to find the results based on that search term. So if you think about that the same way you're looking for a job title, if you are looking for something with marketing manager, but it doesn't have to be the word marketing manager, you just hit marketing manager in the search result, and anything in the job description with the word marketing and manager, it doesn't matter if it's in about the company or if it's the title itself, it'll pull anything under those words. Now, when you're putting it in quotation marks, you are specifically saying, I want the job title to say marketing manager. And if you look at some of the results on here, it says other words, but marketing manager is strictly right next to each other. So this is a great indicator to do a little bit of research on the types of roles you're looking for. Every company, depending on their size and stage, may use a different leveling or term for their role. A marketing manager and a VP of marketing or a director of marketing could all technically be similar in leveling. It just depends on the company size and the scope and impact of the role. So when you are searching for open roles, either on LinkedIn, Indeed, Google, try playing around with different words, add growth marketing, add, whatever it is that you're looking for in those search terms to kind of find the right role for you. This is also called a Boolean search term, and is actually what recruiters are using on LinkedIn or other websites when we're looking for candidates. If I'm looking for a marketing manager and I want to find a candidate who has in their LinkedIn profile the term marketing manager, I may use that in quotation marks. I may use an and/or function. So really kind of test and learn what works for you and how you find the best results for the right job.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we have a video on this on our YouTube channel as well about how to test out different job titles to see what results you get, because they will be slightly different, and what might be called a lead at one company might be a senior manager or a head of at another company. You just never know. So wish there were consistency. We'll also say Dave, our founder and CEO, has this great hack where once you have this search set of what you want to be looking for, say we want to just search jobs posted in the last week to make sure they're the most effective, you can actually just save this search to your bookmarks bar. And then you could create a folder so that every day you go in and you click the different search terms in your folder so that you are not having to retype all of this from scratch every day. So I think that's a cool hack. I will say this one, we're looking at Denver just because Colorado requires salary transparency in their job descriptions. They're one of the states that does. Not everyone always follows it, but in theory, it does help to just get a sense of what the salaries are. So let's go ahead and we're going to think of this as sort of almost window shopping, where instead of deciding, okay, this is the exact role I'm interested in, now I'm going to save that, I'm going to go do my resume, I'm going to apply. Instead of like one job at a time, we're going to sort of batch the tasks so that we reduce some context switching. So you can think about it as if you are just putting things in your basket and you haven't totally decided yet. Let's say we want to look into this role. Oh, this looks great. Using the Teal Chrome extension, you just pop out the little duck symbol on the right-hand side. You can rank this by level of excitement. So in this case, I'm gonna go 5 stars, excitement. And then you can change the stage of your job tracker that you're saving it to. For now, let's say I wanna just bookmark this job for later. I'm still gathering information on it. Not sure if I wanna apply or not, but it's going in my shopping cart, proverbially. This is all in the free version of Teal. You'll see the 5 top hard skills that are included in the job description. And those are all skills that you'll want to make sure that you're including on your resume if you're applying to this role. We'll get into that in a little bit, and we'll talk about it more as we talk about tailoring your resume. But you can leave some notes for yourself, maybe need to see if it's hybrid, let's say. And then when you save the job, that will immediately go into your job tracker, which we'll go back and look at in just a sec. But let me just save some more jobs here for now. Let's say we're interested in this one and this one. And this one I'm going to mark as not as excited because I don't know the compensation. But if you did have it, you could add it manually. And we also actually now support additional currencies, not just US dollars. So if we do have any international folks, Teal's products are geared toward folks in the US just from a best practices perspective, but you can certainly use it as the base and then adjust it as needed for your particular market. So now that let's say I find a job that I've already applied for, and I'm like, I just want to make sure it's in my tracker. I'm going to just add that to the applied stage already. And now let's go back over to our job tracker and we'll see all of the jobs that we just added. So as you can see here, it'll show you the status of each. It'll show you the job title, the company, the salary, location, the date you saved the job. If you're struggling to figure out which jobs to prioritize, you can sort by excitement and you can focus on applications for the jobs you're most excited about first. And then when you click into each job, you will see a few different things. You will see keywords highlighted in teal. And so these are, in this case, it looks like Autodesk is also the name of the company. So this may be an instance of it picking up on some keywords that aren't like 100%. You don't necessarily need to mention Autodesk that many times. But let's take a look at this one from lead product marketing manager role, and it'll show data, AI, GDM, which is go to market, MBA, and SQL as some of the top skills. So each of these, once you see which job you're interested in targeting next, you can take it and walk it through every stage of the job search process. So let's say we've bookmarked this job at Hinge Health. There's some guidance over here on the right-hand side that'll walk you through, okay, now what? You should look at the highlighted skills and keywords. You should see if this feels like a good fit for you and your experience. Then you can research the company. You can rate your excitement level. And then if you've decided like, yep, this looks like a good fit for me, I'm going to move this into the next stage. That's the applying stage. And so that gives you more guidance here on what to do next. You can check to see if you know anyone at this company on LinkedIn. So let's click through and it should automatically bring up a list of anyone we know. Unfortunately, I don't know anyone there. So let's expand this and see if I have any second or third degree connections. And, oh, okay, so this person is a second degree connection. So maybe what I'll do now is I will open my Teal Chrome extension again, and now I can add him to my contacts tracker. So he is other, because I don't know him, but I would love to have an informational interview and I would love to contact him. I'm going to set myself a reminder and then I will save him and I will automatically get a reminder to follow up with him on the preferred day. And then he'll be added to my Teal contacts tracker so I can see all of his information here and I can have a better understanding of not only his career history and his skills, but he also doesn't necessarily need to see that I've gone back to his LinkedIn profile 5 times to check and see, you know, what his latest is. So let's say I do want to reach out to him. Leah, in terms of recommendations for reaching out to strangers on LinkedIn, I know you've gotten your fair share of like unhelpful introductory emails, what would you recommend people do and don't do? And I can sort of walk through the communication template process as you talk.
Great question. So if you are job seeking right now and you are reaching out to a recruiter or a hiring manager, my best advice is stop what you are doing before you hit send. Go to the company website, make sure the company is actually hiring the role that you were intending to apply for. If they don't have that role listed, it's likely they're not hiring for it, or it's not a priority hire at this time. So if you are going to be reaching out to someone, make sure that there's actually a role open right now. Go ahead and apply, and then send out a message letting them know that you've applied, you're looking to do an informal or starting at the interview process, and go from there. Because if you haven't applied, I can guarantee the first question they're going to ask is, have you applied to the role? And if you said no, they're going to say, well, apply for the role. And then it's just a lot of back and forth when you can really get to the point. So the name of the game is intentionality and specificity in your reach out message. So take a little bit of time, go on LinkedIn, make sure you're reaching out to someone who works at the company, or maybe it's even a hiring manager or someone in that role that you'd like to join their team. Let them know you've applied for the role, if they can refer you to the hiring manager or the recruiter, or let them know you'd love to get an informational interview, and then go ahead and hit send and put it out into the universe and then move on to the next role. You're welcome to send 1 or 2 follow-ups, but if you're not hearing back after a while, my best advice is just to move on to the next and to continue your job search.
Sorry, I'm on mute. That is great advice. And I think too, we have a tracker in here that once you've applied for a job, you can keep track of your follow-up dates so that you know when you've followed up. Generally, we recommend following up once a week for 3 weeks, and we have some suggested dates in here for each role so that you know when to send each follow-up, but we generally recommend archiving the position on your tracker if you haven't heard back over in 3 weeks. It's not a hard and fast rule, but sort of a general recommendation. The other thing to point out too is that there are some email communication templates right here in Teal. So if you go to this little email symbol, you have one free email communication template for each stage of the funnel here, and then you have additional templates if you upgrade to Teal Plus. So this is just a quick way you can copy and paste, you can adjust it as needed. There are also some great ChatGPT prompts. We have a piece on that if that's helpful to share, but ChatGPT can be a big time saver in terms of crafting outreach messages, so long as you are tailoring them and customizing them before hitting send. Again, anything related to AI, definitely meant to use as a jumping off point and a starting point and not your end product. So let's say you have reached out to someone, you found this role, you are excited about applying. You really want to now focus on making sure that your resume is as good and as relevant as it can possibly be. So what we will go ahead and do is walk through our resume builder. So on the left-hand side here, you'll see this resume builder symbol. You can create as many resumes as you want in Teal for free, always. And we right now have the ability to export them as a PDF, the ability to export as a Word doc. We hear you, that is coming. It is in the pipeline. It's just not there just yet. But we really want to give you one central place to manage your entire resume creation process. I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but I've had times in my life where I have a million files on my desktop that are like my name, resume, final, resume, final, resume, final 23, resume 20, there are all these variations. It's so hard to keep track of what resume was used for which job. So in the resume builder, we want to give you a very easy way to see all of your resumes in one place, to make edits across all the resumes as needed, or to tailor each individual resume to a role that you are interested in. So let's go ahead and start with creating, I'm just going to call this our base resume. And what we want to do here is use it as a hub for everything you've ever done, all of your wins, all of your achievements, all of your accomplishments. We are going to get all of the information in there first before we worry about whether or not this should be included on the resume that we're about to submit. Leah, do you want to maybe talk a little more about this and why this step is important?
Absolutely. So when we think base resume, especially within Teal, what I want you to think about is filling everything you've ever done. Ignore about the 1 to 2 page limit, ignore whatever, anything that's holding you back. Put everything in, put your entire work history. If it's 20 to 30 years, put it all in there, because then what we're going to do is when you're ready to go in and tailor your resume, and this will save you time. When we go into tailor your resume, what you can easily do is toggle on and off anything that is relevant or not relevant for the job. Because at the end of the day, hiring managers and recruiters are looking for someone who can do this job, not just any job, but this job. So we're going to specifically be looking for that on your resume there. And in a little bit, we'll talk through about matching mode analysis, and you'll literally be having your resume and the job description side by side. So let's just start talking about creating the resume first.
Perfect. So you can do this. You can import an existing resume, or you can import a LinkedIn profile. We are going to use a demo profile from our friend Tina Miller. And let's see, yep, there we go. Tina Miller. I'm going to do this in the interest of time, just because it's super easy, but you can upload an actual PDF of a resume, with the caveat that you will need to do a little bit of formatting when you first import it, especially to just get the bullet points aligned the way you want. There's just a little bit of base cleanup to do at first pass, but once it's in Teal and you have it there. So you only have to do that one time. So once this is now in here, I'm realizing, go back. So let's call this the base resume. That change I didn't save. And let's make sure that all of this information is filled out as we want it. So you'll definitely want to make sure you have a professional email address. I'm going to use this one for now. You'll want to make sure that you have your city and state. They were based in Miami. You don't necessarily need a street address. That is no longer needed. You can put your phone number and your LinkedIn profile, and it'll show up on the right-hand side. So on the left-hand side, we have everything where we're going to edit, we're going to change, we're going to put our inputs, and then the right-hand side shows us what the output looks like. So we will get into some specifics in just a second when we go into matching mode, but just as a whole, the resume builder has guidance mode embedded, so that for every step as you create your resume, it'll tell you on the right-hand side sort of a best practice or something, what the point of this thing is. One of my favorite parts is when you go to add achievements, the resume builder guidance mode has an achievement assistant tool that's almost like Mad Libs for your career. So you can pick and choose from these action verbs. It walks through, helps you really craft an impactful achievement and helps you think about how your achievements are structured. And one of the things I've seen as a hiring manager is I see a lot of people relist all of their past responsibilities for a job in the resume. And those are pretty consistent from job to job. Like a lot of different people may have helped launch campaigns to drive brand awareness. So instead of just that broad bullet point, I'd rather know the so what behind it. Like, okay, that's great, but what was the impact? What was the result? How did you do it? What were the things that you achieved? Sort of what can you ask yourself as you comb through your own resume to say, does this show impact? And does this answer the question, so what? So resume assistant, achievement assistant. So let's say we grew, I'm gonna say TikTok accounts from 10,000 to 100,000 in 9 months by implementing a product-led strategy. Cool. And we just save it and it gets added to our most recent work experience. Also in the resume builder, we do have analysis mode that tells you what parts of your resume are missing structurally. Leah, do you have any recommendations when it comes to adding target titles? I know it says, you should add a target title, but why?
We recently got an application for one of our open roles that had a different title than what the actual role we were hiring for. So let's say that you are applying for a senior recruiter position and you have a target title that says social media manager on there, just for an example. A hiring manager or recruiter may look at that and say, are you applying for a social media manager role or are you applying for the senior recruiter role? So just being specific and intentional with your resume that you are presenting on your application. You don't have to hit a target title on there. It is completely optional. Some people love it, some people hate it. But if you are going to add a target title, make sure that it is the same one as the role that you are intending to get. Again, some titles may be varying in their ask, especially with scope and size of the company. So just make sure that you're double checking that right before you hit send.
Or even, yeah, to your point, just making sure that it's relevant. If it's senior marketing manager, it doesn't have to be, you could say senior manager of marketing, and that gets the same point across. Whereas we were reading through a bunch of applications for an influencer marketing manager, and I was amazed at there were so many that said customer success professional or operations professional or social media manager, but they didn't mention the keyword influencer marketing anywhere on their resume. So that is where we will go in just a sec as we dive into matching mode, is how to ensure that you have the most impactful words possible on your resume to show that you can do a job. So let's hop over to matching mode. What we will do, I'm going to create a new resume so that my base resume stays as is. I'm going to duplicate this, and then I'm going to connect this to a job. So let's say we're really excited about that job at Hinge Health. I liked the way that one looked. So we are going to look at it side by side. And again, I'm going to just rename this Hinge Health resume. On the left-hand side, we are going to see all of the things we can edit. On the right-hand side, we are going to see what we call matching mode. So this score up here, don't worry so much about the exact number. It's generally intended to show you how close a match your current resume is to the job in question. Again, it's definitely not always perfect. We actually have some exciting AI updates that are in the works, so bear with us as we get those up and running. But what you can do is see what the most important keywords are that are in the job description, and then where in your existing professional experience you have those keywords. So for example, Salesforce. We have that listed on the skills section of our resume. But what's even more impactful than just listing something in a skill is to really show the how of how you used that in your last role. So let's see if there's a way that we can incorporate that into our past experience. So maybe as a senior marketing manager at WeWork, hypothetically, maybe Tina, let's actually go, I'm going to pull up guidance mode and my achievement assistant tool. So let's say generated, I'm going to say, or increased leads by 25% in 3 months by using Salesforce to track and measure prospective clients. Okay, and now when I go back to matching mode, I mean, this was already included, but now we have a really strong way of showing Salesforce in action on our resume, not just in the skills section. You can also toggle back and forth to the job description itself. And one of our tricks that we really like to do is to go through and say, for the what we're looking for, this is their required section. So Leah, do you maybe want to talk about the trick for how you can ask yourself about this experience?
100%. So when hiring teams are drafting up a job description, we're talking about our wants and our must-haves and our nice-to-haves. So if you do look at some open jobs right now, you'll see kind of the breakdown. We'll talk a little bit about the company itself, why you want to work for this company, and then talk about what it is we're looking for. Or sometimes it'll say a day in the life in this role or expectations of this role, whatever it is the company is highlighting on there. But for this one specifically, it says what we're looking for. So they're looking for someone with marketing expertise, experience with a wide variety of channels from digital and beyond. And then there's some keywords in there. So a great tip is to turn that into a question. Do you have experience in marketing? Do you have experience in a wide variety of channels from digital, email, SMS, direct mail, whatever that is? Do I have that? If I don't have that on my resume, it's probably what they're going to be looking for. So look back into my past work experience and see where I can add that achievement. They're looking for someone with 3 to 5 years of applicable experience and a bachelor's degree. So that's going to be one of the main criteria for this role. So they're going to be looking and seeing if you have that accumulative 3 to 5 years of experience, if you have that bachelor's degree. Some companies will take experience in lieu of a degree, but really use the job description as a guide to see if you have something currently listed on your resume that is relevant to the job and what they're looking for. If you don't have that on your resume and you do have that experience, and this is when we talked about tailoring your resume earlier, you can easily toggle on and off what is relevant. So if this company does not want someone who has experience building TikTok or follower growth on social media, maybe I'm not going to include that on there because they're not looking for someone heavily in social media. They're looking for someone with experience in Y instead of X. So keep that in mind when you are tailoring your resume.
Such good advice. The other thing that you can do is you can use AI in order to craft your achievements. So let's try this with, again, we'll go back to this WeWork role here. And you can click generate with AI, and this will use the information in your existing resume and the information from the job description to craft a bullet point achievement that it deems effective. That said, AI is not perfect. It does not know everything about your past history and what you actually did. So this is very much a starting place in terms of the numbers. So not to say, this number is exactly accurate, but you'll need to go in and say like, okay, well, did I grow the enrollment program? By how much and in how long? And now we're getting in some of these keywords that we just saw were really important that were called out in the job description, like SMS, email, direct mail, experiential marketing. I could even add in out of home here for that added keyword as well. And then as you add the relevant terms, the keyword, the match score over here will increase. So we just brought it with this one bullet point achievement. We took it from a 17% to a 22%. Again, this is all in the free version of Teal. If you do upgrade to Teal Plus, you get unlimited use of AI. So the free version of Teal, you can add as many resume achievements as you want, but you get 5 AI generated achievements. You also get 2 AI generated professional summaries. So let's test this out and see how that works. And oftentimes, again, this is a good starting place. It's not a perfect solution, but you'll want to make sure that your professional summary also encompasses some of the keywords from the job that you are applying to. It's a way to speak about your career in aggregate as a whole. And if you're earlier in your career and you don't necessarily have a lot of professional experience to summarize, that's also okay. One of the things that we sometimes recommend for folks who are newer in their career is come to formatting mode, and you can actually rearrange the sections of your resume so that whatever you did most recently is first. So perhaps we would move up the education section. Well, actually after the target title. But you could have your education, and then you could put your volunteering and leadership skills. And then you could put there's a projects and awards section that's not showing because ours is empty, but you can rearrange this however you need to be able to best present yourself as a qualified candidate. There are also some resume templates to choose from. All of these are proven to be compatible with ATS. And Leah, maybe you can explain a little more about how the ATS is not a bot that's rejecting your resume, but why it's still important to have a clean format.
100%. We do get a lot of feedback from job seekers saying, I want more formatting. I want to be able to create more columns. I want to add graphics on my resume. And I'm here to tell you that as a recruiter, we're not looking for that. We don't want to see fun graphics. We don't want to see pie charts or the bubble chart skill sections. What it is we're looking for, we want to know who you are, what you've done, how you've done it, and what impact you've made. So Teal is essentially taking everything and scaling down and focusing just on the content here. And what I do like is you can rearrange the order section right over here. This is helpful if you're looking for either chronological or a skills functional format. If you don't know what a functional resume is, it's kind of focusing more on the skill set that you have and not necessarily on the physical work experience. So you are able to do kind of different formatting there. You can change the font if you want to create a fun colored line. Some people love that as well. We do have formatting that we are adding to the Teal platform. It is in the works. It's not ready yet, but stay tuned for that. But one of the big things as a recruiter I want you to focus on is the context and the words on your virtual paper. And why is that? Is because in the ATS system, what it is not doing is looking at your resume, reviewing it, and then rejecting you. What it is doing is it's now creating a profile for you. So your name is John Doe in the system, and it now have you tagged to the role that you applied for. If you've applied to 6 roles, it'll say John Doe, and then all the 6 roles that you've applied for, including any attachments, if it's a resume or cover letter for the entire team to review. Much like our matching mode analysis, how we have a scoring method, there are systems that do have a scoring method. However, due to the way words are formatted and the way it pulls text, the rating system is not accurate, and a lot of teams actually don't use the rating system. So the system is not actually rejecting you. It may be rating you, and then the recruiter hiring manager is actually going in and rejecting you. Unless you have knockout questions in your application, and those are the types of questions you may see when you're filling out a job application that says, how many years of experience do you have with SQL programming? If you enter 3, but the job description is asking for 5, that means that you don't meet the basic qualifications for this role, and the system may actually reject you. However, hiring teams can still go back in and review your resume because, again, these systems aren't as smart as people think they are. They truly are not. They're basically used as a virtual filing cabinet. If you are getting an instant rejection, it could be based on knockout questions, but it could also be based on the time that the recruiter is reviewing your resume. So keep that in mind. Focus on what you can control. And right now we're focusing on the content on our application and going from there.
Well said, per usual. So now I would love to do one more thing in here, and then we will toggle over to Teal Plus so that folks can see that in action as well. So one of the most dreaded parts of the job search is the cover letter process. I have definitely felt that deeply. So what we can do here is I'm going to pick let's see, a role in here. I was just trying to secretly upgrade this account on the back end so that I could flawlessly transition into my Teal Plus demo. I think in doing so, I got some things a little bit confused on the back end. So you're seeing some jobs here that we did not just save to our tracker. But let's say we're looking for this position at Airtable. You know what? I may need to actually log myself out and back in for just a second. Please bear with me here for one sec. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Alrighty. So let's say we are in our resume builder. Let's say Tina Miller is applying for this job at Figma and she wants to write a cover letter. You can change the job that you are writing the cover letter for, and you can hit the generate with AI button. Again, it may take a moment. If you have too much information selected on the left-hand side, it sometimes will, it's a little finicky in terms of having the right information selected, but it'll write you a custom tailored cover letter that is based on your achievements as you've listed them on the left-hand side in your resume. and it'll also pull in keywords from the job description. This is, I think, a really solid starting place. It could be a smidge long, but it actually, as a whole, at first glance, just skimming it, looks really good. Leah, what's your take on whether or not you should submit cover letters?
If it takes you so much time to write a cover letter and the job is not asking for one, I would just ask you, is it worth your time? If it is worth your time to sit and create a cover letter for every single resume, go for it. If you don't think it's worth your time, that's okay too. A lot of people are moving away from cover letters because essentially what they are is just a regurgitated keywords that don't really tell me anything other than what's already on your resume. So what a cover letter is supposed to do is fill in the gaps that is not necessarily on your resume. It's basically your pitch as to why. Again, not everyone is requesting cover letters nowadays because shouldn't that already be on your resume? So unless it is specifically asking for one, I don't submit them. But if you are using a cover letter generator like the one in Teal, use that as a starting point, because what it is doing is pulling the data from your resume. And again, we did mention that if there's too much on there, it's basically you're overwhelming the system and you're putting too much information. So it's really hard to take 100 lines and condense it down into a really short few paragraphs. So basically, if you are going to write a cover letter, keep it brief, keep it to the point. We don't need to know why you would like to move to Montana or necessarily why you'd love to move into a role. We want to know who you are and what you know and go from there.
So I will devil's advocate for just a sec. As a hiring manager, I actually love cover letters. And so actually, my sister is on this call. Thank you so much for joining, Len. That's so nice. She has a question about what are your thoughts if an application has a cover letter field, but it's not required? Does it look bad to not have one? I don't think it looks bad. I think people do understand that they're a time commitment and that, you know, everyone is busy and everyone's applying to multiple jobs. We're not under any illusions that you need to have like a whole fan fiction note written for every single company you're applying to. That said, as a hiring manager, I love them. Even if they're not required, to me, they show the extra initiative. They show that someone took the time to at least put a little bit of research into the company, even if it was AI generated. Like, I appreciate that they took the time and that it helps to showcase their experience. I got one recently for a role we were hiring for. It will forever just sit in my mind. I think I actually might write a LinkedIn post about this. It was so brilliant in that in addition to just summing up her experience, she actually like linked out to past examples of work she'd done. She made it interactive. She included emojis. She just made it feel really personal. It was in a Google Doc. And at first I was like, oh, a Google Doc, like I don't want to have to click out and read it. I was so glad I did. I was blown away by just like, I could see the attention to detail and I thought it just summarized like her as a person so well. So I think if you have a base one that you're able to tweak for each role, great. If not, just a general one that still speaks to like putting in the effort. I think it's a really nice touch. And I know that it's annoying to write them. So I think that's one of the areas in your job search where AI can like really come in handy. Like don't spend 5 hours on a cover letter, spend 30 seconds on a cover letter, and then you still have one. So I have to ask her page. That's a really good question. I'm gonna ask her if I can share it publicly and just blur out her name and her information, because I just want permission before sharing it. But it really 12 out of 10 recommend. Super. So this version that we are seeing here, you can regenerate as many cover letters as you want in Teal Plus. Again, like unlimited AI. With the free version of Teal, you get one cover letter. And then we don't yet have a cover letter tracker, but you can basically take these, copy paste them into a Google Doc, a Word doc, etc., and then use them as needed. So that sort of covers the core basics of Teal end to end. There are a ton of additional features. I'm happy to go into some in more depth if people have questions, or to also answer some general job search questions if people have thoughts on things they're struggling with in their search, ways that they're trying to navigate tailoring their resume. If we can help, yeah, please let us know in the chat. We would love to hear from you. And as a recruiter, it's always helpful to get Leah's other Leah's opinion on sort of what stands out to folks. But I do think the biggest takeaway, if I had to give one, maybe we each give one. But mine would certainly be, think of your resume as a sales document and not a history document. It's great to want to put everything you've ever included on there. It's really hard to kill your darlings, as Stephen King would say. It's really tough to cut out the stuff because it feels so personal and it feels like it's part of you. But I'd say you're going to present the part of yourself that's most relevant to this role. You are trying to sell the company on hiring you. So framing yourself in that really clear-cut narrative in the best way possible, I think is my number one tip. Leah, what would you say?
I think if there's one aspect that I could pitch to every single person, if they're considering using Teal, or if they're currently using Teal and maybe having a little bit of struggle, is lean into the matching mode analysis. And this is when Teal Plus really comes into play right now, and how much I love using Teal prior to joining Teal. Basically what it does is it really holds a side-by-side comparison analysis, and then you can easily go into the guidance and assistant mode to help as needed. But you're looking at the job you're applying for, and you're looking at your resume in real time, and you're able to edit that very quickly. And that is one of the reasons why I do love Teal so much, is because before Teal, basically I'd have a Google Doc open, and then I'd have like 4 different screens of all these different roles, and they're a little bit different. So now I'm copying and pasting into new Google Doc, and it's just already starting to get a little chaotic, and there's just too many tabs open. I've got 50 tabs open currently on my web browser. Imagine if there was all the jobs, the cover letters, the resumes. It's just a lot to do. So I like that Teal really kind of takes it down and simplifies it, so you can really just analyze your resume and really look at it from a perspective of, if I was reading this for the first time, would I hire me? And a lot of people would say, yes, I would, but really look at it from an outsider's perspective. Are you looking at this resume from someone who has never met you and doesn't know your experience, and could tell if you were clearly qualified for this specific role and not just any role?
I read a great post from, I think it was one of our Teal partners actually the other day, and she said, imagine if you went on 50 first dates and you just called everybody John, and like you didn't even take the time to ask what his actual first name was, and you just called him, everyone was John. And it's like, you didn't, that's how sort of I feel when you're applying to companies at scale, is like, you want to make sure that you are making a good first impression for that individual person. And yeah, no, it's a good point. Also, I love that you have so many tabs open, because I do too. I only just hid them for this webinar because I didn't want to be shamed into, but if you are also struggling with that, we hear you. We got you. Sue had a really good question in the chat that I just typed part of an answer to, but Leah, I would love your take as a recruiter as well. She said, should you highlight personal connections to a job that are among your top reasons for applying? For instance, for a role with a nonprofit supporting sarcoma research, should you mention if you have or had a sarcoma, or had a family member or friends with sarcoma? My take is, like, if you are comfortable disclosing that, like, there's no pressure to divulge anything about yourself that you don't feel inclined to share. But if you are comfortable, I think it's a really beautiful way to tie in your why and your passion for the mission, and to articulate it in a way that feels personal. Leah, what would your thoughts be on that?
I would absolutely agree. And I would do a yes, but instead of a yes, and.
I love it.
Throwing it back to the days of improv training. A yes, but is, should you include it? Yes, if you'd like to add that information. I don't think that necessarily determines if you're qualified for the role. It may be more of like your heart and soul and the why behind wanting to join a company, which does also have a lot of merit. We want to hire people that are mission driven. And if you've got a personal tie-in, that definitely adds value, however, is not going to be the main determination. So if you'd like to add that into your cover letter, feel free to. I would probably more highlight that in the interview process rather than on your resume itself. Because again, I'm looking for, do you have the experience and skill set I need to step in day one, not through, a 90-day or 6-month period. I want someone day one who is qualified with these qualifications. And as a recruiter, that's what I'm going to be looking for. But I do empathize with people who are personally mission driven. It does add impact, but not towards your qualifications. So hopefully that answers your question. And yes, in the cover letter, completely up to you.
To Rob, to your question about working in Saudi, there's no option to add nationality on the resume. For now, it's all still US geared and US focused, so we don't have nationality as a resume recommendation in the US. That said, once the resume functionality is available to export as a Word document, you could probably add that in manually. I don't have an exact ETA for when that will be live, but you could certainly check back soon, please. Great, and I do think we have time for one more. So Paige is saying, as a project manager, is recruiter looking for projects on a resume or accomplishments based on the job description? Ooh, that's a good question. I have thoughts, but I'm not a recruiter. So
I'd love to hear as a hiring manager what your thoughts are.
my thoughts personally are that it's always most impactful to see it under work experience as part of what you achieved in your role. So if I'm looking to hire a project manager, I am probably more inclined to say like, oh, what impact did they have as a project manager in their most recent role? And then how about in the role before that? So the way my eye is going to hit the resume, let me actually just pull up the resume here. If we're going to Tina's resume, I'm going to probably read this in an F shape. So I'm going to scan the top first, and then I'm going to go down this left-hand side and see the target title, the professional summary, and give that a skim, and then dive right into the work experience. Honestly, if you have a project section, it's probably going to be way down here, and I'm probably going to know, I'm going to have a gut instinct in the first 10 seconds as to whether I want to keep reading past the first half of this resume. So I think having it impactful up top, as close to the top as possible, if it's relevant, is probably my preference.
Yeah, and if you are, if you do have a question about what the question is, it's right above. Oh, it's only in host and panelists. So it's asking about, is a recruiter looking for projects on a resume or accomplishments? So I would 100% guarantee, it's Monday. I would 100% agree with Leah there. And I want to see kind of the impact you've done. If you want to use the project section to talk about some of the projects you've worked on, but you can put that in your accomplishments about what impact you made within your projects. So just kind of another thing to do a yes and of what Leah was talking about of, if I'm reading it within the first 10 seconds or so, if I want to like go further, I did want to highlight one of the big topics we see floating around the internet is, do recruiters spend 7 or 6 or 5 or however many seconds it is that's on today looking at a resume? And what I want you to think of it as is, do they take 7 seconds to look at your resume? In a way, they do. I can tell very easily off of a first glance if someone is clearly qualified for a role or is not. If someone is clearly qualified, I'll put them into a second resume review section. If they're a maybe, I'm going to put them into a yes and review that further. If it's clear that they're a no, and I'm going to give an example of one of my past work experiences. I was hiring a senior engineering manager role. So this is someone who's a senior manager who has managed people in the past, and someone who is currently in high school applied for the role. While I love their shoot their shot mentality, they were clearly not a fit for the role that I was hiring for. So that is a pretty quick glance to note that I cannot hire this person. Or if we're saying that we can only hire someone in the US because we're not able to offer sponsorship, and there's someone who's put on their resume that they're located out of the US, unfortunately, I cannot hire you and I cannot consider you, so I would reject you. But when we're talking about the first 7 seconds, it's a quick glance over, and then it's getting me to want to read the rest. So how can you entice someone to talk a little bit more about your experience and your impact so that they continue to write more and more?
Awesome. Thank you, Leah. And then Paige, I see you have one more question about what would stand out as a signal that they are clearly qualified for the role. Do you want to touch on that in that top third?
Yeah, so if you are going to use the resume summary section, if a job is saying that they're looking for someone with 3 to 5 years of experience, I'd probably be highlighting the experience that I do have that's relevant. This one's asking for someone with 10 to 15 years of experience in social media. So they're looking for someone pretty senior. So if I'm pretty junior in social media, this may not be the role for me. However, in that first kind of resume summary experience, I'm going to be highlighting what is specifically relevant and what I want to call out for them to want to read further. So if I meet every single criteria of the qualifications, I'm going to do a quick summary of maybe 2 to 4 sentences about my qualifications, maybe some like snapshots about how I've grown something in a certain part of day, and put that right then and there, and then go from there. But what you want to put from the top down of your resume is what is most important to showcase. What is it that I have done in my past experience that I really want them to see? Make sure that's at the top. And again, this kind of goes into the chronological versus functional formatting. Whatever is most relevant to you for the role, you'll put at the top. However, I will say that if you are not doing a chronological resume and you are not putting your most recent experience, I will put a disclaimer that programs and systems are constantly changing and evolving and updating. So a system and program that you may have used 5 years ago, even 3 years ago, is a completely different and upgraded to today's programs. So if you are going to be doing maybe a functional formatting of your resume, ensure that you have the most up-to-date program knowledge and you're highlighting that on your resume. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you so much. I'm also realizing as I look at this that I forgot to show what the job tracker looks like when you do upgrade to Teal Plus. So in addition to your, let's go back to bookmarked. In addition to your top 5 hard skills, you'll also see additional hard skills, and you'll also see color-coded soft skills and emphasis words. So words around which you'll want to pay close attention to nearby words because they indicate that something is important. So on that note, we hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for everyone who joined today, who took the time to chat with us. We know that it is a tough spot out there. We are here to help however we can. This video will be uploaded to our YouTube channel probably Wednesday of this week, so we encourage you to check back there. And we are available for questions, concerns, thoughts, feedback, all the things. Please feel free to give us an email, shout us, on social media. We are both super active on LinkedIn, so we're here to help as best we can with the knowledge that there's no one right answer for everybody. So every situation is definitely going to be unique. But rooting for you all in your search, and take care. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck on your job search.